Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Quispamsis for Tuesday, May 14th. With that being, we'll move on to item 2, the approval of agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Brent?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Mark?
So moved.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on that, please?
No.
Mr. Bishop's okay. He can't get in. That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. None being, we'll move on to item 4, approval of previous minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the previous minutes, please? Brenda?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that, please? Mark?
Second?
Thank you. With that being, can we have a vote on that, please? He's a yay. That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, we'll move on to item 5, business arising from previous minutes. This one little adjustment there, I think it says tragically hit brewing, but it's supposed to be tragically hopped for a notice of decision. Can I have a motion to receive and file those, please? Seconder, Mark?
Second.
Thank you. That being, can we have a vote in that, please? That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, we'll move on to item 6, unfinished business. None being, we'll move on to item 7, new business. Item 7A, 6 Woodmill Drive. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state their name for the record? And we'll get, Jennifer's not here, so we'll get Dwight to introduce that item first. Can you, Dwight?
My name's Susie.
Carl Susi? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dwight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the PAC committee. So this application comes before the Planning Advisory Committee as the applicant wishes to place sea cans on his property for the purpose of an accessory structure. As there are no provisions in our current zoning bylaw with respect to sea cans and their use on a residential property, the application comes before the Planning Advisory Committee under a similar or compatible use, being similar to I guess a stick-built or a structure accessory building. The lot is less than 5,000 square meters. It's located in a rural zone. However, because it's less than 5,000 square meters, the provisions of Section 8G apply. So that would be similar to if a lot was 1,140 square meters. In this particular case, the applicant is proposing to either place one sea can, 40 feet by 8 feet, or two sea cans, 20 feet by 8, which would ultimately result in an area of 320 square feet. The maximum permitted in the bylaw for an accessory structure used for the purpose of storage, not being used as a detached garage, is 23 square meters or about 248 square feet. So there is a need for a variance with respect to the lot, to the area of the structure. The other thing that sort of, when it comes to sea cans and these items have come before PAC in the past, it's providing provisions around how these things should look on the property. As we're aware, they are metal structures, and over time, if they're not taken care of and maintained, they can become unsightly, a bit of an eyesore. So it becomes important to establish provisions around regular maintenance. So whether that's siding the structure to make it look like a typical standard accessory building, or whether that's painted and upkept through the process. When we look at the property, there seems to be an indication of a drainage course or a water course that runs along the side of the property. So at this time, the planning staff would be asking the applicant to simply reach out to the Department of Environment to determine whether a wall is required. Again, this is based on our information, and then the decision around that would be obviously under the jurisdiction of the Department of Environment. In terms of the height of the structure, it's below the maximum height in the bylaw for this particular type of use, so there's no concern there.
Do I still need to get a permit for the Wawa? Even though I'm not doing any digging or anything, I'm just gonna place, level the ground and then just put the sea cans on top of it, right? I'm supposed to know by the end of the week with the Wawa permit. I've been dealing with them, and she told me this morning that I should know by the end of the week if it's been approved or not.
So it's mainly going through them to review it to whether one's case. That's all I have. Open to any questions as you move through the review. Thanks.
Reading out the size is the 20 foot by 8 feet. Did you say 2 20s? Okay, I thought I heard you say one. Okay.
Is it Mr. Susi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you would have received the same thing we didn't, package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or members of the public asking you some questions?
No, I just, like I say, I just want to be able to put these up. I just need to know what I need to do to get them.
Okay, you read our what our comments were about the roof and
Yep,
siding and
yep,
all that stuff.
yep.
Okay, perfect. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, for the staff instead, with the addition of this 320 square feet of storage plus the storage facility on site, so the two combined, is that going to exceed the percentage overall allowed, or?
That's within the tolerance. It's 10% or 30% lot occupancy. In this case, that's not approaching that at all.
Thanks, Dwight. Any further questions for the applicant? Brenda?
Just a comment. I'm trying to visualize a 40-foot sheet can with a roof.
Yeah.
Would that not look better if you had 20 side by side?
Well, yes, I was just dealing with the Wawa. If I put the 40-foot sea can, I'm gonna have to, I probably won't go with that one because it'll stick closer to the center of my property.
Okay.
So if I put the 220s, because the sea cans, you can get sea cans with roll-up doors on the sides of them.
Yeah.
So if I put the 220s beside each other, they'll have 2 on each side, roll-up doors. And that's why
And then you don't have to go in 40 feet to
that's right, yeah.
get your lawnmower.
Yeah, because what Wawa wants me to do is go 5 meters from the edge of the ground.
Yeah.
So if I go 5 meters and then I go 20 feet, well, then I'm right in the middle of my lawn. And you know what I mean? It just,
Yeah, no, I when I went by, I visualized not where it was, but
Yeah.
sea cans and
yeah,
two with the roof.
yeah, no, yeah,
Will
the
not
220s would
look good,
definitely look
yeah.
a lot better for sure. But it was just kind of something, it's in the planning, right? Like we're just trying to figure out what we need to do. So I wanted to put that in my suggestions to know where to go.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other questions from PAC members to the applicant? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Bishop?
I'll put a motion forward that PAC approve the use of 140 by 8 or 220 by 8 sea cans, being similar to compatible use with accessory structure and used as a detached garage, and 6.7 meter variance from section 8G2C to permit an accessory structure with a gross floor area of 29.7 square meters at 6 Woodmill Drive, PID 301-93742, subject to following terms and conditions. 1, an application to the Department of Environment and Local Government is determined if a watercourse wetland alteration permit is required, and if so, received by the Department of Planning and development service prior to development permit being issued. 2, revised site plan is received by the Planning Department Services Department identifying the the location and size and setbacks for the sitting of the C-can or cans on the lot for approval by the development officer or their delegate. 3, exterior finish of the C-can or cans, cladding recognized by National Building Code of Canada, current adopted edition. 4, a shed roof be added to the C-can cans to minimize visual impacts to the public and neighboring properties to the satisfaction of the development officer or their delegate. 5, the applicant to provide the Planning and Development Service Department with copies of permits issued for the fence and the shed that are currently in existence on the lot. If none are available, the applicant is to submit development permit requests for those items prior to the issuance of a permit for the C-can cans. 6, C-can cans or cans are not to be used for business purposes, for the keeping of animals or other household pets as dwelling units. And 7, a development permit is issued prior to development.
Just wait. No, go ahead before we,
I have the fence in anymore. The fence is there, has been gone. We didn't know that we needed a permit for the fence. Like we had the fence for probably 6 or 7 years, and we used it for my son with special needs. But anyway, we've taken it down. We've taken it down like 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And the shed's been there when we built the house. It's been there for 16 years, so we don't have any permits. We never knew anything about those permits. So I don't know what to do about that stuff.
so I guess the other option would be, option 2 is submit a development permit request for the shed to be there. That's all you have to do
Okay.
through with the
Just
town.
talk to Jennifer
Yeah,
about
let's
that.
talk with Jennifer or Dwight, yep.
Okay.
That being, we can strike that fence is gone.
The fence is completely
Okay,
gone. Yeah.
we can strike that away from that. Can I have a seconder on that motion, please? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brenda. Is there any debate on that motion? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing is with regards to the roof and the exterior finish. In the past, we've put a timeline on when this is to be done. We gave them like within X amount of time of the C-cans being put in place, that they had to have a timeline as to when this was to be completed. And we've done that
Something?
I would say within 6 months.
Okay, well, Dwight?
3, Mr. Chair, permits are good for 1 year. So you have 1 year to complete the work under the permit. If the work's not completed within that 1 year, then they have to come back before the town. So
Thank you, Dwight. Mark, do you have something?
No,
No?
that was the same question.
Okay, perfect. With that being, seconder on that? Who seconded that? I forget. Brenda, yeah. Can we have a vote on that, please?
Just verbally ask Mark Guest.
Mr. Guest, are you online? Mark, are you online? We'll strictly just strike him right now. He's not on, not answering. Okay, just take.
Absent. Okay.
That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, you'll have a permit, your notice in the mail next 5 to 7 business days. Please work with the town to have all necessary paperwork, the Wawa information, and that existing shed documentation. Work with Jennifer and Dwight. And best of luck with your endeavor on your property.
Thank you very much, folks.
Should tell me to leave stay.
Hmm?
Should tell me to leave stay.
Hey, you don't have to stay if you don't want. It's up to you. Perfect. We just want to make sure.
It's a great show.
Tuesday night entertainment. It's not bingo. We don't think it is. All right, with that being, we'll move on to item 7B, 12 Ruth Avenue. Could the applicant please come up to the podium? And Dwight, you want to introduce that item, but maybe you can state your name first for the record.
Elizabeth Siemens?
Elizabeth Stevens?
Siemens.
Stevens? Dwight, you want to introduce that item for us, please?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Planning Advisory Committee. So this application comes before the Planning Advisory Committee as a request to operate a home occupation, which has been identified as a small psychology practice, being limited to, my understanding, is one person on site. So this property, obviously 12 Ruth Avenue, may be familiar to the Planning Advisory Committee, as this property came before the Planning Advisory Committee in the past on a couple occasions requesting the operation of a hair salon. PAC did grant approval for the operation of a hair salon at this particular property. And then there was a subsequent ask to increase the number of employees at that particular location, and that was granted as well. It is our understanding that that property has been sold or is in the process of being sold. Therefore, as PAC is aware, these approvals are non-transferable. They don't run with the property in the fact of once the property owners or the people for which the approval was granted is no longer at the property, then the approvals basically terminate. So any other request has to come before the Planning Advisory Committee, which is what's happening here this evening. So when we review this application, it does meet the requirements as outlined in the bylaw with respect to home occupation in an R1 zone, in terms of it being relatively small, being secondary to the main use of the property, being residential, and keeping with being limited in terms of size and scope within that particular building. As has been provided in the application, basically looking at one psychologist being on site. Operations are proposed from 8 to 5, basically in your typical 5-day work week, with potentially looking at about 3 patients a day, with no overlap between the appointments or patients. The property has 2 parking spaces identified in the driveway for the office. So one of the challenges that has, from the past, was concerns with respect to traffic and the level of traffic and on-street parking. This is sort of a thing that can be a concern when it comes to these home occupations. So it's important that conditions are put in place to recognize that there's not to be any on-street parking, that it's supposed to be respectful of the location and where it is located. Obviously, the main, use of that property as well as the properties in the area is residential. So it's maintaining and keeping that residential character that's important as we go through this process and reviewing this application. In terms of variances outside of the scope of what's permitted in the bylaw has been identified, it does meet the requirements. So there's no particular variances to this particular application. It's simply a review of the request and determining whether the request is fitting with the property and the neighborhood. I'll leave it for there, and if there's any questions through the process, I'm open.
Thank you, Dwight. Ms. Siemens, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of the public or PAC asking you questions?
Yeah, there was a couple of things I thought I might mention because I did read the letters.
Okay.
So there was a couple concerns I wanted to address. The first was around the nature of the work that I do and some concern about just having a psychology practice. And I just thought it might help if people knew that the majority of my work is with children. So I'm a child psychologist, mostly coming in for assessments for learning disabilities, ADHD, autism. I have a little bit of work that I do for therapy with children. Most of the clients I have for therapy I've worked with for a number of years. I have good relationships with those families. I don't foresee any issues asking them to park right in the driveway. I think that'll be fine. There was some mention of concern about violent incidents related to psychology. I haven't in 15 years encountered anything that would be a concern. If I was worried about that, I wouldn't want it in my home. So that's not something that I would foresee as a problem. With respect to the parking, like was mentioned, I would say my average day is about 3 people. 3 clients who come. I did look at this past week just to give you a sense of how many people would come. So yesterday I had 3 clients. Today I did have 4. Wednesday I'm scheduled to have 2 people, Thursday 2 people, and Friday 1 person. So it's not a lot of coming and going. Sometimes people come for a 3-hour appointment, so they're there for a chunk of time, and then that's that for the day. Like was mentioned, there are the 2 parking spots, so I think that that's plenty. I usually leave about 25 minutes between my clients. I have to set up and clean up and do all my notes. So I wouldn't expect people to kind of meet in the driveway. One person should be gone before the next person arrives. I do have kind of a spiel I give people, of course, when they're coming for their first appointment. So it'd be pretty easy to include, please park in the driveway, don't arrive 10 minutes before your appointment for parking purposes. I think we can easily address those concerns. The last issue I think was mentioned was just around growth of the practice, and that I would include extra psychology plan to do that. It's never been a goal of mine. It's just going to be me. I do it with an admin who works from home, and that's the way that we plan to continue.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
I'm very familiar with the property. I went there for my hair.
Okay.
That's gone now. But I also walk by there a lot. And it's, the hair salon never increased their employees. They were just the one anytime, right? The same person. But the issue is with the rentals, the other parts of the house, because the house people that lived in the house had multiple vehicles, and the other ones were 3 family adults, all with vehicles, and their friends. So it's not the practice is going to cause the trouble, it's the rental of the garage. And it's an apartment and a bachelor apartment, or is that
It's a 2-bedroom apartment,
just
up,
a one?
like up above the garage. 2 bedrooms there. And
In the garage that's causing the problem. And people would go there to get their hair done, and the driveway could be full, and they'd park in the road. And even then, if there's room in the driveway, they'd park in the road. So there's solutions that could be done to get them to park off the road, but you also have to control the number of vehicles that belong in the property.
Right. So I hear what you're saying, because we did go view the property. So we saw the number of vehicles and trailers, et cetera, that they owned. We don't own that many vehicles. So for us, it's my husband and I. Vehicles. We don't have any immediate plans to rent. The additional have is we will have 2 spots that we identify. As these are for the clients, and it's easy for me because it's 1 person at a time. So if I see they're parked on the road, it's pretty easy to say, oh, would you mind pulling your car into the driveway?
And again, I know you don't have any plans to rent,
Right.
but that's a source. Get into trouble with parking.
Okay. Is that a separate issue to having a home? Like, would that not be almost 2 businesses? I'm just not sure how to navigate that.
I'm not sure how many home-based businesses also have 2 apartments associated with it. And it's,
Yeah.
the parking is an issue as it currently stands. Is the garage is rented?
Yeah.
If each have 1 car, no big deal, but
Yeah,
there
and
are
I guess
multiple cars.
it's hard for me to speak to how they ran their
Yes,
situation. So I can't say like, oh, they did this, so I'll do that, because I don't know. All I can say is what our plan would be.
Yeah.
So our plan going forward is we would have our vehicles, because we've talked about it, of course, if we do this, how is that going to look? So we're picturing that we would park in the garage, which leaves, it's a very large driveway. So we're happy to put out something that says this is for client parking, but we're also mindful that that might go against the spirit of the neighborhood to say, you know, this is parking, and because I know there's only one sign allowed, so being mindful of that as well. But if it addresses the concerns, I guess we can identify this is for clients to park, if that makes sense.
Prepare to address it before you think about renting those units.
Yes.
Because that's when the problem will.
Right, and we'll get the complaints, I guess, if there's people on the road related to all of those vehicles. Yeah.
Dwight, do they have to come back to rent that, or is that automatically granted into the existing house to get that as a rental?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so the zoning bylaw permits, the way it's structured is you have a main use and you have a secondary use and you have a discretionary use. A single or two family, or so make for sake of clarity, a single or two dwelling unit building. So in this particular case, there's the primary residence and then they have a rental. So you can have a second dwelling unit. That's still considered your main use of the building. That's their primary use. In addition to those two dwelling units, you can have a home occupation. That's in the bylaw as a secondary use. The home occupation has to be secondary to the primary use, which is residential purpose. So you can't have, you know, another commercial operation in there. It's residential primary. That's how the property should be, the main purpose of it. And then it's supplemented or secondary use in terms of secondary of a home occupation, which is the ask that's here. If you go beyond two dwelling units, if there's a third one, then that's a rezoning issue. That's, the property is not in compliance. Okay, so you're restricted to two dwelling units and a home occupation as a secondary use. Once you go beyond that, that's a non-compliance with the bylaw, with the zoning bylaw, and you have to get into rezoning. Anything more than two dwelling units requires a rezoning to multiple residential.
Okay, thank you, Dwight. Any members of PAC have any further questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Preston.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. Planning Advisory Committee proceed with approving the home occupation out of a small psychology practice at 12 Ruth Avenue, PID 3007124, subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, it should be secondary to the main residential use of the dwelling. 2, not more than one person is engaged therein in addition to any permanent resident of the dwelling unit in which it is located. 3, it is confined to the dwelling unit and no part is located in an accessory building or structure. 4, no change except for a sign pursuant to the town's sign bylaw is made in the outside appearance of the building, which indicate that a home occupation is being conducted therein unless approved by the municipal planning officer through the process of a development permit. 5, no goods or services other than those directly pertaining to the home occupation are supplied or sold therein or therefrom. 6, no equipment or material used therein or is stored other than in the dwelling unit. 7, no more than one commercial vehicle used in connection therewith, or not more than one vehicle of any kind bearing a sign in connection therewith is parked on the lot. 8, there's to be no parking on the street or within town-owned property. And 9, the PAC approval to operate the business is not transferable. The approval is solely for the benefit of the property owner named herein. In the event the business is discontinued or the lands are transferred, the said approval shall terminate.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Can I have a seconder on that, please?
Mr. Chair,
Yes? Mark,
this is
thank
Mark
you.
Guest. I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please?
And that's a yes for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. unanimously. 5 to 7 approval. Please work with the town. Have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck in your practice. Thank you. You're welcome. With that being, we'll move on to item 7C, 101 Longbow Place. Could the applicant please come up and state your name for the record, please?
Hey, my name is Justin Bell.
Justin Bell?
Yeah.
Dwight, you want to introduce that item for us?
Just give me a second here. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Planning Advisory Committee. So the application that's before the committee is with respect to the construction of a detached garage, a 30 by 34 detached garage, as well as a request to install a second driveway. In this particular case, the detached garage or accessory building to be used as a detached garage is including a bonus room or a bonus space, if you will, in the loft. So therefore, it will increase the height. So there's a couple of variances that are required through this process. So the proposed height is 7.1 meters, so that's a 2.1 meter variance with respect to the height of the building, as well as the size being 31.7 square meters larger than the 63 square meters permitted under the bylaw. Again, the increase in heights because of the sort of the bonus room or bonus area that will be, I think it may be used as additional storage, but the applicant can clarify that. The driveway will obviously require some coordination with the engineering in terms of making sure proper drainage is in place. He's indicated that the installation of the culvert will be done by the town and be done as part of this project. I think that's it for me at this point. Again, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Dwight. Mr. Bell, you would receive the same package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or public asking some questions?
No, that sounded correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Mark?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. There's a power line going across the property at the bottom of the proposed garage out there. Is the setback from the power line to the garage meet the regulation? Or should they apply with NB Power and get approval, I guess?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of a bylaw, there's no provision with respect to separation. It's whether you're encroaching on an easement. Not sure if the property shows an easement.
Property line, there's the power lines that you can see. If I may,
we could usually get what?
15 meters on both
Yeah,
sides.
that's a,
Yeah, so it appears to be, connection to the house. So that would be something that they would look at, maybe want to run by NB Power, have them visit just to confirm. But there's nothing from a bylaw provision. We have separation with respect to the placement of a pool. So your pool relative to that service line, it's, yeah, but the actual building seems to be fine.
Thank you.
Any other further questions from PAC members to the applicant? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Goslin?
Mr. Chairman, I'll put a recommendation together. Planning Advisory Committee approve a 2.1 meter variance from section 8G1A of zoning bylaw number 038 and a 31.7 square meter variance from section 8G1C of the same bylaw to permit the construction of a 94.7 square meter detached garage with a building height of 7.1 meter at 101 Longbow Place, PID number 477661, subject to the following terms and conditions. Number one, the exterior finish of the garage is to be a cladding recognized by the National Building Code of Canada, current edition. A development permit is issued to the development of a second driveway prior to the construction. Number three, the garage is not to be used for business, for the keeping of animals or other household pet, or as a dwelling unit. And number four, a building permit is issued prior to the construction.
Thank you, Mr. Goslin. Can I have a seconder on that? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please?
Mr. Chair, it's a yes for me.
Thank you. That motion's carried unanimously. Mr. Bell, you'll have your letter in the mail in 5 to 7 business days. Please work at the town to have all necessary paperwork completed, and the best of luck with your project. You're welcome. That being, we'll move on to item 7D, 163 Vincent Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state their name for the record, please?
My name's Aaron Kyle Green.
Aaron Green?
Last name's Kyle Green. It's hyphenated.
Okay. Dwight, you want to introduce that item, can you, first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Planning Advisory Committee. So the application comes before the Planning Advisory Committee as the property owner, the applicant, is proposing to build a 53 square meter detached garage that sits in the front yard area. As indicated or can be seen when looking at the property, it's a bit of a challenge to locate the garage or structures, as just given the geometry of the property, as well as it's encumbered by a couple of easements. There's a drainage course, a water course that runs up to this, I guess, to the south, if we're looking at north up on the screen, which also has an easement because it's all piped and infrastructure in that particular location. The property owner, the applicant, has applied to the Department of Environment and received a WAWA, which has put restrictions on it getting closer to that water course, or sort of pulling it forward. So just given the nature of the property, the in the front variance of 11.2 when we look at the Vincent Road in terms of the design of the Vincent Road is in place, that particular even if we were to say in the future there may be some widening for the purpose of lane in there's still room to accommodate that. In terms of the actual impact and the location, a reasonable request is 10 square meters less than in that particular zone. Concerns received, given the location of the use of the property. There is an existing structure on the property. I'm not sure if that's being relocated or moved, what the plan is for that. Yeah.
It's going to be removed once the garage is built. Or
So they'll open up a little more area there, so that would be sort of a condition of this process that I would recommend.
Thank you, Dwight. Mr. Kyle Green, you would have received the same information packet we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to PAC or members of the public asking you questions?
no,
You're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brent?
Yes, Mr. Chair, my question is, where is the garage physically going to be put on the piece of property?
There's an existing
Yeah, I know where the
Parking-
shed, yeah, I know where the
parking
shed
pad
is.
on the, yeah, not where the mouse is circling. There's a gravel parking pad, and it's pretty much going to be on there, but a little bit closer to the house, just to keep it as far away from the road as possible.
Okay, that's my only concern. I live in Alderbrook, so I know what it's like coming down there and trying to make the left-hand turn to look up. I just want to make sure, the only reason I'm asking the question, just want to make sure it's not going to block point of view.
Yeah,
and where you're
there's a
putting it.
tree line there,
Yeah.
so I don't think that would be a concern.
No, won't be a concern where it's being placed.
The little box.
See it up there?
Okay, see it now.
Thank you, Dwight. Any further questions for the applicant from members of PAC? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. Planning Advisory Committee approved an 11.2 meter variance from section 8G1A of zoning bylaw number 038 and a 7.9 meter variance from section 8G1B1, I of the same bylaw to accommodate the construction of a 53.4 square meter detached garage at 163 Vincent Road, subject to the following terms and conditions. One, the exterior finish of the garage is to be cladded recognized by the National Building Code of Canada, current adopted edition. Two, the maximum number of permitted accessory structures building in the subject lot. Any times three. Three, the garage is not to be used for business, for the keeping of animals or any other household pets, or as a dwelling unit. And four, a building permit is to be issued prior to construction.
Did we mention about taking that other structure down, did you?
No, we can add that the present accessory structure on the building, the shed, will be removed as part of the development.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder on that, please?
Mr. Chair, I can second that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Guest. Any debate in that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please?
Mr. Chair, it's yes for me.
Thank you. That motion's carried unanimously. In 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval, so please work with the town to have all your necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck. Thank you. You're welcome. That being, we'll move on to item 7E, 434 Model Farm Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state your name for the record, please?
Jonathan Tricarton.
John Tricarton? Dwight, you want to introduce that item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you to the Planning Advisory Committee, the application comes for the Planning Advisory Committee as the request is to build an accessory structure to be used as a detached garage. that will be situated on the lot such that it is beyond the front line of the main property. It is also going to be situated such that it is closer to the main building than 3 meters, which the property itself is located in a rural zone. However, the actual lot area is less than 5,000 square meters, which means the provision that these applications be considered under Section 8G, which sort of puts the R1 or single detached provisions in as part of the review process. So this building is 78 square meters, which means it's 15 square meters or about 160 square feet larger than that's what's permitted. But again, given the location being in a rural area, the property does have some trees and stuff around it, so that would sort of mitigate that side of things. So the items that comes before the Planning Advisory Committee in terms of the ask, if you will, as it relates to this application, is that it is situated beyond the front line of the house. I think that's in relation to the land is developed, so in terms of accessing it and its usability on the lot, it's more applicable to move it forward. So that's 4.6 meters. Again, there's a variance of 0.6 meters because of its location with respect to the main building. There's a 15 square meter variance with respect to size. As well, there's already 3 accessory structures on this property. Because the provisions of 8G kick in, you're limited to no more than 3 on a lot. It is our understanding, based on the information provided, that 2 of those accessory structures will be removed to make room for the proposed accessory structure. So that brings it in line with the provisions of the bylaw and addresses that concern. I believe that's it for me at this point.
Thanks, Dwight. Mr. Turcarton, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to questions from PAC or members of the public?
No, good.
Thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Goslin.
Mr. Chairman, I'll put a recommendation. The Planning Advisory Committee approved the following variance for zoning bylaw number 038, a 4.6 variance for 4.60 meter variance from section 8G1B111 and a 15 meter variance from section 8G1C to permit the construction of a detached garage 4.6 meters beyond the front line of the dwelling, having a setback distance to the main dwelling of 2.4 meters with a gross floor at 434 Model Farm Road, PI 03. The exterior finish of the garage is to be cladding recognized by the National Building Code. That accessory structure building on the sub is through for the keeping of animal, or there also permit is issued.
Mr. Goslin, can I?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion?
Mr. Chair, that's a yes for me.
Thank you. That motion's carried unanimously. 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail, please work with the town. And best of luck on your building.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Information items for discussion, none being, we'll move on to item 9. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Mr. Bishop, can I have a seconder on that? Thank you. That meeting has been adjourned.